As I was walking around Oregon State University in Corvallis, I couldn't help but think that the university is fortunate to have an exceptional collection of trees. If these trees could talk, what stories would they tell us? Today, we'll explore three remarkable trees: a Metasequoia known as a living dinosaur, a Douglas Fir known as the moon tree, and a 350-year-old Oregon white oak. Our journey begins with the Metasequoia, also known as the dawn redwood, near Benton Hall. It is one of the first of its kind planted in the United States. This Metasequoia fossil from eastern Oregon is around 50 million years old. It is the key to our story. Due to its importance, the Oregon State Legislature in 2005 adopted the fossils of the Metasequoia as the Oregon State fossil. The Metasequoia was thought to be extinct until a grove of living trees were discovered in a remote area of China in 1946. This leads to it sometimes being referred to as a living fossil. The discovery of a living fossil instantly attracted attention from around the world. It was widely regarded as the greatest discovery of botany in the 20th century. It was as remarkable as discovering a living dinosaur. In 1948, Ralph Cheney, professor of paleontology at the University of California, Berkeley, and passionate advocate for the North American redwoods, had been hearing for a year and a half about the discovery in China of trees that had been thought extinct for millions of years. Cheney thought that the key to understanding the ancient forests of the Northern Hemisphere might be found in the groves of Metasequoia in Sichuan, China. If so, it was important to learn about the climate and topography of the region in which these living fossils had survived. And it was important to determine whether the trees in China were the same as those of the North American forests millions of years ago. The Arnold Arboretum of Harvard University funded the expedition to China to collect seeds. Cheney was no stranger to China. He had been there several times before. But this trip to China, which was his last, was especially difficult. The expedition was beset with bad weather, bad food, and political difficulties. Political factors soon afterward caused the complete exclusion of Americans from the Chinese mainland. Cheney often said that he wished he might go back again, but given the political situation, it was out of the question. Cheney himself brought back Metasequoia seeds and 4 seedlings from China. Concerned that his prizes might be taken from him at customs in Hawaii, he tucked the seeds and twigs into an inner pocket and requested intercession for the seedlings from a former student at the Department of Agriculture in Washington. Word did not reach the inspector at Plant and Economic Quarantine in Honolulu, however, and he demanded that the 4 seedlings be handed over for incineration. Cheney's protest that the trees were priceless, more than 1 million years old, was of no avail. The ensuing argument grew louder and louder until Cheney, close to hysteria, was shouting defiantly and citing millions of years, tens of millions of years, 100 million years. Suddenly the agitated inspector asked a question: "Are they more than 150 years old?" And so, officially declared antiques, the seedlings continued their journey to California. Soon afterwards, seeds were distributed to various universities and arboreta worldwide. Cheney gave 3 rare Metasequoia seedling trees to Paul Dunn, dean of the School of Forestry at Oregon State College, as it was named at the time, for planting on the Oregon State campus. The seedlings were each in 1-gallon cans and about a foot tall. They were derived from seeds Cheney planted in April 1948. Planting occurred in the spring of 1949 at 3 locations at Oregon State. 2 were planted on the main campus and 1 was planted upstream from the forestry cabin in McDonald Forest. 1 campus tree was planted south of the forestry building, now Moreland Hall, the other in the lawn east of Benton Hall. Neither of the trees planted near the forestry building nor at the forestry cabin have survived, but the tree planted east of Benton Hall has survived and flourished. The Metasequoia is one of 3 species of conifer trees known as redwoods. Although the shortest of the redwoods, it grows to at least 165 feet in height. The Metasequoia is interesting in that it is both deciduous and coniferous. Conifer trees bear their seeds in cones, hence the name conifer. The vast majority of conifer trees have needle-like leaves, such as pine or fir, or scale-like leaves, such as cypress or juniper. Most conifer species keep their needles all year, so we often refer to these trees as evergreen. However, the Metasequoia is deciduous since it loses its delicate, feathery needles in autumn. These metasequoias in China show the amazing colors of these trees. Just imagine what North America must have looked like during the Paleocene and Eocene geological epochs, 66 to 33 million years ago, when extensive forests of Metasequoia occurred as far north as northern Canada at around 80 degrees north latitude. Metasequoia was likely deciduous by this time. Given that the high latitudes in this period were warm and tropical, it is thought that the deciduous trait evolved in response to the unusual light availability patterns, not to major seasonal variations in temperature. During 3 months in the summer, the sun would shine continuously, while 3 months of the winter would be complete darkness. It is also thought that the change from evergreen to deciduous trait occurred before colonizing the high latitudes and was the reason Metasequoia was dominant in the north. This Metasequoia is a living tribute to Paul Dunn, who is remembered by his forest industry associates for caring deeply for the forests. He attended to conservation issues constantly, contributing his time and efforts wherever they were needed. Dunn served as Dean of Forestry at Oregon State College from 1942 until 1955. Dunn was instrumental in obtaining the 6,200-acre Adair tract for teaching and research, and it was subsequently named the Paul Dunn Research Forest in his honor. His students remember him vividly. They knew him as a source of motivation and inspiration to do well. The words of one of his students say it best. He was an outstanding forester, educator, and administrator, but most of all a thoughtful, caring man. One of the most fascinating heritage trees on campus is the moon tree, located on the east lawn of the College of Forestry building. This tree was grown from seeds that orbited the moon on the Apollo 14 mission in 1971. It was part of a scientific experiment to see if space travel would affect seed germination. This tree was planted in the spring of 1976 as part of the U.S. bicentennial celebration. The idea for the moon trees was first proposed by Edward Cliff, then the chief of the United States Forest Service, who convinced Stuart Roosa, the command module pilot on the Apollo 14 mission, to bring a small canister containing about 500 seeds aboard the module in 1971. Stan Krugman of the Forest Service was put in charge of the project and selected the seeds for the experiment. Seeds for the experiment were chosen from 5 species of tree: loblolly pine, sycamore, sweet gum, redwood, and Douglas fir. The seeds were sprouted when they returned to Earth, and most of the seedlings were given away in 1975 and 1976 to state forestry organizations in order to be planted as part of the nation's bicentennial celebration. The locations of many of the trees that were planted from these seeds were largely unknown for decades. In 1996, a third-grade teacher, Joan Goebel, and her students found a tree in their local area with a plaque identifying it as a moon tree. Goebel sent an email to NASA and reached employee Dave Williams. Williams was unaware of the tree's existence, as were most of his colleagues at NASA. Upon doing some research, Williams found some old newspaper clippings that described the initial actions taken by Roosa to bring these seeds to space and home to be planted. Williams posted a page on NASA's official website asking for public help to find the trees. The page also contained a table listing the locations and species of known moon trees. So if you ever come across an undiscovered moon tree, be sure to let NASA know about it. In 2011, this Oregon State University moon tree was rededicated in honor of astronaut Stuart Roosa. Roosa, who was instrumental in the original Apollo 14 seed experiment, worked as an Oregon smoke jumper during his early career and maintained ties with Oregon throughout his life. Roosa passed away in December 1994 and is buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Today, the Moon Tree Foundation continues Roosa's legacy. It is an organization run by Roosa's daughter, Rosemary, which seeks to plant moon trees in regions around the world. The foundation sponsors and hosts ceremonies to plant new trees, with seeds produced by the original generation of trees that grew from the seeds carried by Roosa. The moon trees have always been about more than just trees. It is about our connection to the past and our journey to the future. When this tree was planted in the bicentennial year, President Gerald Ford wrote that these moon trees renew our deep-rooted faith in the ideals of our founding fathers and inspire us to strive for the kind of growth that benefits all mankind. Next, we visit the Oregon white oak, located north of the College of Veterinary Medicine. This oak is growing in the fenced area the veterinary hospital uses for large animal intake. This tree is so enormous, you don't have to be right underneath it to appreciate its stoic beauty. It is approximately 350 years old and one of the largest native oaks on campus. Beginning life in approximately 1673, it predates the founding of the Oregon State University campus by nearly 200 years. Oregon white oak is characterized by its broad canopy and robust trunk, providing a habitat for a variety of wildlife such as the acorn woodpecker, slender-billed nuthatch, and western gray squirrel. Oregon white oak also provided an abundance of food for the Kalapuya Native Americans, who used the tree's acorns to make acorn meal. Its large acorns mature in one season, ripening from late August to November. 150 years ago, the Willamette Valley was almost completely covered with Oregon white oak trees. The valley was a mix of grasslands and oak trees, otherwise known as an oak savanna. These savannas were the result of repeated burning by the Native Americans who lived in the valley. The burning encouraged the growth of camas, a vital food source, and created open landscapes for big game. Oregon white oak is one of the most fire-resistant trees native to the valley, and as a result, the repeated fires encouraged oak trees and grasses to flourish, while at the same time relegating many other species, including Douglas fir, to a much more minor role in the valley ecosystem. Over the last 150 years, European settlement and a dramatic shift in land management priorities has produced the valley that we know today. A valley where only about 5% of the native oak ecosystem is left. Think about where you see oak trees in the valley today. There are little pockets and clusters of oaks all over the place. Imagine what the valley must have looked like. Just think of all that has happened in the world since 1673. During all those years, so many things could have happened to this tree. And yet here it stands as a historic reminder of the past and a tribute to the many community members who worked diligently to protect these historic trees. Oregon white oaks can live for 500 years. Hopefully, these trees will continue to be protected by future generations in the years to come. These heritage trees are more than just botanical specimens. They are integral parts of Oregon State University's history and identity. These trees offer shade, beauty, and a sense of continuity, enriching the campus environment for generations to come. They also connect us to the past, enhance our present, and inspire future generations. Each tree has a unique story that contributes to the tapestry of the campus. These trees stand as silent sentinels, reminding us of the enduring power and beauty of nature. They are living legacies, nurturing both the land and the minds that walk beneath their branches. Next time you're on campus, take a moment to appreciate these extraordinary trees and the stories they hold.